Charlotte, North Carolina, the Queen City. What have you done? What if I told you a mother buried her newborn daughter, then got a call saying the baby was alive? What if the voice on the other end was calm, confident, full of hope? What if the hospital that shattered your world suddenly claimed things were looking up? What if everything you thought was grief became doubt? What if you couldn't trust the death certificate or the body in the casket? Now imagine that mother sitting in the dark, phone trembling in her hand, trying to make sense of a voice that just told her her daughter was thriving. And then, just as suddenly, click, silence. Hello and welcome to Cigar A Crime, where we delve into the darkest mysteries and the murkiest truths, all over a fine cigar. I'm recording live from the Lounge of Truth, where the smoke swirls, but the stories don't lie, baby. I'm Dr. D, your host and guide. Thank you for joining me for episode 15, Legacy in Limbo, the LaChunda Hunter case. Each week we pair a story with a cigar and draw out those complex flavors of truth, aim at the smoke. But our mission goes beyond intrigue. It's about seeking justice and humanity in equal measure. Tonight's case is unlike any we've done before. It's not a classic whodunit or a crime scene investigation. It's the true story of a mother's nightmare in a hospital nursery, a case of life and death, of hope raised and then shattered, and of a system that left a family in agonizing limbo. This is the story of LaChunda Hunter, a North Carolina mother who believed she witnessed a miracle baby, only to be thrust into a bizarre saga of conflicting reports and unanswered questions. Why does this case matter? Because it cuts to the core of something every parent holds dear: trust. Trust in those who care for our loved ones. Trust that when we are at our most vulnerable, we will be told the truth. LaChunda's story forces us to confront what happens when that trust is broken. It asks how a mistake, if it was a mistake, could steal not only a child's life, but a mother's certainty about that life. This episode is for the legacy of Darmika-Grace Gray, the premature baby at the heart of it all, and for LaChunda, who's still fighting for truth. We approach this story with care and respect, knowing her family could be listening. There will be no sensationalism, no gracious detail, or a compassionate search for answers. So light up a cigar, settle in, and join me as we navigate the smoke and shadows of a case that shows just how high the stakes are when the smoke never lies. Before we trace the timeline of that fateful February, let's pause for our tradition, the cigar of the day. Today, I've chosen a cigar whose very name and character mirror the haunting nature of this story. It's the Gurkha Ghost, a Dominican cigar wrapped in a sleek obsidian dark Brazilian Maduro leaf. The Ghost is known for its hidden depths and complex flavors. Under that shiny, haunting exterior lies a multi-layered smoke that reveals itself slowly. With each draw, notes of cocoa, black coffee, and its earthy leather emerge, tinged with a whisper of sweet caramel and spice. It's a smoke that doesn't give up its secrets too fast, lingering like a friendly specter on your palate. Why pair this with LaChunda's story? Because her truth, too, is a ghost, elusive, hidden in shadows. Just as the Gurkha Ghost cigar offers subtle complexity beneath its bold presentation, this case holds layers of revelation beneath the obvious tragedy. There's the initial shock, bitter as that first hit of espresso on the tongue, and beneath it, a clinging sweetness of hope, and then a bite of peppery uncertainty. In the finish, as we puff on this rich medium full cigar, we're reminded that sometimes what you see or taste isn't what you get at first. The Ghost Cigar's very name evokes the presence that haunts this story. The specter of legacy, this baby girl who may be gone, or maybe, as her mother wonders in her darkest hours, somehow still alive. Tonight, each wisp of smoke is a metaphor, curling and twisting like the questions in our tale. And as we seek clarity in the haze, because on this show, you know, the smoke never lies. Let's do a deep dive into LaChunda and her legacy. Let's step back from this eerie phone call and look at the people at the heart of this story. Who are LaChunda Hunter and baby Legacy? What brought them to that hospital in the first place? To truly grasp the weight of this case, we need to understand their lives beyond just the headlines. This is the human story, the one of a woman who fought to become a mother and a newborn who fought to live. LaChunda Hunter didn't think she would have children. She didn't think she could have children at all. For years, she had resigned herself to that reality, carrying the weight of ache of a woman who dreams of a child but isn't sure she'll never or ever hold one. Then in September 2021, everything changed. LaChunda discovered she was pregnant. It felt like nothing short of a miracle. Imagine her joy after all the doubts and dashed hopes. A tiny heartbeat was now fluttering inside her. She nicknamed the baby her miracle girl before she even met her. Family and friends shared in her excitement. One friend later said LaChunda called it a miracle. And when she found out, this long-awaited child was already deeply loved. Pregnancy, however, did not go so smoothly. By early 2022, LaChunda developed dangerously high blood pressure. Doctors grew concerned. She showed signs of preeclampsia, a condition that can threaten both mother and the baby. In February 2022, still far too early, at just 23 weeks alone, LaChunda was admitted to Novant Health Presbyterian Medical Center in Charlotte. It was the kind of crisis expecting parents pray never happens. Her baby had to be delivered 4 months premature to save one or both of their lives. On February 13th, 2022, via an emergency C-section, baby Legacy Darmika-Grace Gray was born. Weighing barely more than a pound, she was as small as a hand, her skin delicate and translucent. The odds were against her. 23 weeks is on the edge of viability, but Legacy came out fighting. Against all odds, Legacy showed signs of strength in her first hours. She was thriving. They thought the worst, but she did well, LaChunda later recalled. For NICU staff, this tiny preemie was a surprise. Fragile but fighting. LaChunda, still recovering from surgery and high blood pressure, was discharged 3 days later. She left the hospital alone. Her baby was still in the incubator. The ride home with empty arms was the first of many quiet heartbreaks. Each day that followed, LaChunda returned to the NICU, whispering through the glass, watching over Legacy's tangled web of tubes. Nurses, they shared every heartbeat, every millimeter of milk, every small milestone. And slowly hope bloomed. Legacy was holding on. The worst seemed behind them. But on the morning of February 19th, 6 days after the birth, LaChunda visited as usual. Legacy was still stable, still fighting. A nurse even messaged later to say that she was doing well. That day, Maybe for the first time, LaChunda let herself dream of the day she'd finally bring her baby home. Nothing could have prepared her for the call that came that night. On February the 19th, a voice on the line, doctor or nurse, she's not sure, told LaChunda the unthinkable. Legacy was gone. Just hours earlier, she had been stable. Now, dead? No real explanation, no warning, just finality. Her miracle baby gone in a whisper. LaChunda went numb. By morning, she'd steeled herself for the unimaginable, saying goodbye. On February the 20th, she returned to the hospital with 2 friends. But instead of a quiet NICU room or chapel space, staff led her into what felt like a storage closet. No windows, dim lights, metal shelves stacked with supplies. There, a nurse handed her a bundle, blankets wrapped tight around what she was told was her daughter. Only a small part of the infant's face peeked out. It was so dark, LaChunda could barely see her. I don't know what the baby looked like, she said. It was too dark. Listeners, I want you to imagine that moment. LaChunda reached out, heart pounding, and took the tiny bundle under the blankets she was told was her daughter. But the baby had no tubes, nothing in her nose or mouth. Legacy had been intubated in the NICU. That absence struck her, but in her grief, she didn't ask. Instead, she and her friends wept, whispering, "I love you," praying over a face barely visible in the dim light. She kissed what little she could see, and tried to believe it was her miracle girl. Back home, grief swallowed her whole. She made funeral arrangements on autopilot, choosing a casket the size of a shoebox, planning a goodbye no parent should have to face. Legacy's body was transferred that same day. The funeral was set for later that week. But even as she picked out flowers, doubt crept in. The baby she held looked different. Bigger, the skin too smooth, the bruises Legacy had was gone. And one chilling question took root. Was that even a girl? This baby doesn't even look the same. LaChunda later made those remarks. No marks, no sores, nothing. To some, it might sound like grief's confusion, but to LaChunda, she knew something was off. With funeral plans underway, doubt crept in. LaChunda couldn't shake one awful thought. What if that wasn't my baby? Now, most would chalk that up as denial. But then, on February the 22nd, just 3 days after she was told Legacy had died, her phone rang. A doctor introduced himself. His name was Dr. J. Kothadaya. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. He sounded upbeat and unaware. He said Legacy was doing well. Her jaundice had improved, breathing better, blood counts stabilizing, the kind of updates any NICU mom would cling to. LaChunda froze. The baby he was describing was hers. He was talking about Legacy. She put the call on speaker. Her assistant, sitting beside her, shouted in disbelief, "You told her that her baby was dead." Then there's this pause. Then click, The doctor hung up. I kid you not, listeners. I said I wasn't going to cuss in any more episodes, but this motherfucker hung up. LaChunda's hands were trembled. Could it be true? Had there been a mistake? Was her daughter still alive? She called the hospital again and again. No answer. Left a message. Nothing. Her mind spiraled. Did Legacy revive? Was that someone else's baby in those blankets? Was my daughter still in that NICU? Finally, the phone rang. This time it was another doctor, Dr. Prevey. He was calm and apologetic. She told LaChunda there had been a mix-up. The earlier call wasn't meant for her. It was meant for another family. Somehow, her number had been attached to the wrong chart. A clerical error. A wrong number. That's all it was, the doctor said. A cruel coincidence. But to LaChunda, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like the truth had just slipped through her fingers. Again, she told Dr. Prevey the test results weren't random. They matched Legacy's condition exactly. Jaundice, breathing, blood work. What were the odds another baby in the NICU had that same issue at the same time and suddenly improved just as Legacy was pronounced dead? LaChunda asked the obvious. Was there a mix-up? Could the babies have been switched? But instead of answers, she got a wall. The doctor's tone shifted from apologetic to icy, defensive. Then something worse. A warning. They threatened her. If LaChunda came to that hospital asking questions, she'd be met by security. She'd be arrested. LaChunda stood there. She was stunned. Not only had she lost her child, now she was being threatened for asking why. The call ended like that. No closure, just fear. And that was the moment things changed. Grief turned to suspicion. Doubt turned to fire. Was her daughter really gone? Or was something being hidden behind hospital doors? So let's lay out the timeline of events as clearly as possible because this is very important. It's crucial to separate what is confirmed fact from what is still unknown or disputed. So we have this sequence of dates and actions, many drawn from LaChunda's statements and the lawsuit she eventually filed. So let me walk you through it step by step, date by date. September 2021, after years of infertility, LaChunda learned she was pregnant, her miracle child, her only child. Late 21, January 2022. The pregnancy is, of course, complicated, high blood pressure, the kind of pregnancy where every day feels like a high wire act. February 13th, 2022, at just 23 weeks, LaChunda undergoes an emergency C-section at Novant Health in Charlotte. Baby Legacy enters the world weighing about a pound. She's placed in the NICU. Against the odds, she's stable. February 13th through the 18th, Legacy shows strength. Nurses say she's thriving. She's doing well. LaChunda is discharged, but visits daily, soaking in every breath, every flicker of hope. February 19th, the morning of February the 19th, Legacy is still doing well. A nurse even calls to say, hey, she's doing well. LaChunda leaves the hospital that day with a rare sense of peace. February 19th, A call shatters that peace. Legacy is told she's gone. No clear explanation, just silence and grief. February 20th. LaChunda is taken to a dark, windowless room, not viewing space, but something closer to a storage closet. A baby wrapped tight in blankets is handed to her. No tubes, no ID. It doesn't feel right. Later that same day, the baby is sent to the funeral home. LaChunda Days begins to make burial arrangements for Legacy. February 21st, doubt creeps in. The baby didn't resemble Legacy. She orders a DNA test. Unbeknownst to her, Legacy's chart shows medical updates after her supposed death. Tubes removed, care logged. February 22nd, Dr. J. Kothadaya flips the script. Legacy is improving, he says. LaChunda is stunned. Her assistant even blurts out, "You told her her baby was dead." The doctor hangs up. Hours later, another call comes in from Dr. Prevey. Says the update was a mistake. February 23rd. The DNA test returns inconclusive. Novant runs a second test without her consent. She says, which comes back as a match, but she's not convinced. Later February, despite nagging doubts, LaChunda buries the baby. Closure remains out of reach. 2022 to 2023, the DNA test returns inconclusive. Novant runs a second test without her consent. She says, which comes back as a match, but she's not convinced. Later February, despite nagging doubts, LaChunda buries the baby. Closure remains out of reach. 2022 to 2023, this grief turns into obsession. Medical records show disturbing discrepancies. The hospital offers no answers, no meeting, no autopsy, just silence. The mental toll it had on LaChunda. LaChunda fell into a mental health spiral. She developed severe anxiety and depression. Who could blame her? One of the most basic foundations of her reality, whether her child lived or died, had been shaken. According to her legal complaint, she began suffering from PTSD. Intrusive thoughts, nightmares, constant second guessing of what was real. She would wake up thinking she had heard her baby crying, then question if it was Legacy calling out her somehow. The ambiguous loss, when the mind cannot grieve what the heart cannot confirm. In March of 2024, LaChunda files a lawsuit. Then it's later withdrawn. I'm thinking it was likely a strategic move, because by January 2026, she refiles. This new lawsuit details everything: the death notice, the phone call, the DNA limbo, the medical discrepancies, the emotional wreckage. In a press conference, LaChunda pleads, "I just want my daughter. I just want to know what happened." The hospital issues a polished statement: respect, compassion, privacy laws, but no answers. And so we're left here. A child declared dead, then alive, then dead again. A mother with no clear proof of who she buried, and a story that refuses to rest. LaChunda Hunter's tragedy didn't stay private. It ignited a firestorm. As her story unfolded, the responses from the hospital, legal system, and public laid bare a system under pressure. At the heart of this is Novant Health. Despite a case that screams for transparency, the hospital has been tight-lipped. No public findings from an internal review, No meeting with LaChunda, just a vague statement claiming compassion while threatening her with arrest for asking questions. One doctor delivers a hopeful call. The next one slams the door shut with legal warnings, and still no answers. The optics, they're awful, especially in a time when public trust in healthcare is fragile. If Novant conducted any investigation or held anyone accountable, they haven't said it. Instead, they've wrapped themselves in this shroud of privacy laws, a shield that sounds more like silence than support. With no cooperation from the hospital, LaChunda turned to the courts. Her lawsuit alleges record-keeping failures, emotional trauma, and possibly the mishandling of her child's remains. Novant will likely argue it was a heartbreaking mix-up, but not malpractice. But what's on trial isn't just medical error. It's what's happened afterwards. The stonewalling, the threat, the way a grieving mother was treated. And that's what a jury will remember, at least we hope. If this goes to trial, the emotional damage might speak louder than any lab result. Police stayed out of it. No criminal charges, no investigation. Hospitals aren't crime scenes unless someone files a missing person report. And since LaChunda was given a body and a death certificate, the case stayed civil. But questions linger. Was it truly a mix-up or something deeper? From the moment LaChunda spoke out, Charlotte listened. Local news ran headlines that felt ripped from fiction. Social media lit up with hashtags, Justice for Legacy. What happened to Legacy? Sympathy poured in, outrage simmered. Black mothers across the country voiced their support, recognizing in LaChunda's story a familiar pain, being dismissed, not believed, shut out of systems meant to care for them. Church groups, friends, and strangers rallied behind her. And perhaps most importantly, her story cracked open a national conversation about how hospitals handle loss and how they treat Black women when they question authority. While the healthcare system offered canned statements, the public offered solidarity. One side hid behind policy. The other held up a grieving mother and asked, "Where's the humanity?" LaChunda's fight is now bigger than her. It's a reckoning. It's a demand for truth and a warning that silence won't stop the questions anymore. As a podcaster, a storyteller, and a member of this community, I've followed LaChunda's story with both mind and heart. But now I want to reflect, not just on what happened, but on what it really reveals. There is this term that haunts this case: ambiguous loss. It's when grief has no closure, like a soldier missing in action or a loved one slipping away through dementia. LaChunda buried a baby, but she's never been sure that the baby was hers. She's trapped in limbo. If Legacy died, she mourns a miracle taken too soon. But if Legacy didn't, then she mourns something even more unthinkable, a mistake, or worse, a deception. This grief lives in shadows, a bundle in a dark room, a call that said her baby lived, a hospital that offered silence over clarity. Her mind loops through those moments like a broken record. Was that Legacy? Did I bury my daughter or someone else's child? And beneath all of this is something deeper: trust. or the shattering of it. LaChunda is a black mother in Charlotte. That's not just tone deaf. That's historical. It echoes generations of black women being dismissed, silenced, disbelieved. From medical mistreatment to maternal mortality, black mothers have carried this weight. And when LaChunda said, "That wasn't my baby," she wasn't just speaking from grief. She was speaking from centuries of lived experience. Let's not forget, black babies in America still die at nearly triple the rate of white babies. These are facts. The reasons are complex, yes, but systematic racism, unequal care, and lack of trust all play a role. And that trust, it's been earned and broken 1,000 times over. LaChunda's fight is about more than one baby. It's about every mother who's been told to hush her intuition, to swallow her questions. She didn't. She demanded a DNA test. She filed a lawsuit. She forced the conversation. Legacy's name was no accident. Even in death, she left one. If not for her, would we be questioning hospital protocols right now? Would we be asking why grieving parents are ushered into storage closets? Or how a call about a living child could go to the wrong mother? Legacy was only here for a moment, but her impact is lasting. She is the smoke that lingers in the room. And smoke, as we say, never lies. So here's to LaChunda's courage. We see you, sister. I hear you. To every unanswered question. And to the hope that one day truth, like smoke, rises and refuses to be ignored. We've traveled through a dark and twisting tale tonight. The story of LaChunda Hunter and her daughter Legacy. A baby who was here for only a heartbeat of time, but left echoes that will last long after. By now, you've heard the facts as we know them, and the question that remains. But as we close, it's worth recapping what still is unanswered and where things stand, because this story isn't over. These unanswered questions, the identity of the baby. Was the infant LaChunda held and eventually buried truly Legacy Gray? Then there was this hospital's second DNA test. Say yes, but in LaChunda's eyes, her heart says something different. And remember, that first DNA test was inconclusive. Then the medical records discrepancy, cause of death and care, accountability, the impact on policy. As we seek truth, we say their names. Legacy Darmika-Grace Gray. Maybe she lived 6 days, maybe more. What we do know, she was loved. She felt her mother's warmth. She fought in that NICU. And though she never crawled or spoke, her story now speaks volumes. Legacy's name is no accident. Her legacy may be the fire her case ignites, a demand for truth, dignity, and reform. She was not just the baby. She was legacy. She mattered. And LaChunda, my sister, still standing, still fighting, a mother who refused silence, a woman who stood before cameras and courtrooms, pushing through grief so others might never face the same. Her courage didn't come from having answers, but from demanding them. This story doesn't close with clarity. Not yet. It ends, for now, with an open door, a question mark, and an ellipsis. We'll keep following LaChunda's story, her journey. Maybe one day we'll bring you news of resolution. Until then, may truth find its way through the fog. May healing reach a mother's aching heart. And may no family ever again be left in such silence. Thank you for walking this road with us. If this story stirred something in you, share it Let LaChunda's voice echo far and wide, because sometimes public outcry is what finally forces institutions to listen. Thank you for joining me on Cigar A Crime tonight. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and follow us on all platforms. You can find Cigar A Crime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. We also post additional content and updates on our social media. So be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for the latest on this case and others like it. For those who want that full experience, remember we drop the full video version on our YouTube channel every Thursday. There you'll see visuals including archival news, footage, and interviews, and maybe a glimpse of the cigar for you aficionados. We'd love for you to tune in, leave comments, and join that discussion. Your thoughts and feedback mean a lot to us. Lastly, if you have any tips, personal stories, or cases you think we should cover on our future episodes, reach out to us. We're not just a show. We are a community of listeners who believe in shining light on the stories that matter, no matter how difficult. Until next time, I'm Dr. D, reminding you to seek truth, hold your loved ones close, and as always, remember, the smoke, it never lies. Stay safe, everyone. Good night.